Well, when it comes to the Iran war, there's so much there to unpack. But some of the main points are as early as last night. Trump said, hey, nobody wants to be the leader, and we decimated them. They asked me to be. He said, actually said they want me to be the leader, but I don't want to do that. And we had regime change, but it was bad for bad or bad for worse. We haven't stopped any nuclear program. We haven't put the people in charge of the regime. The Kurds don't want to help, even though Trump said they would. And now they're looking at Kharg Island and escalating. I think if they try to take Kharg Island, I think it's a mistake. But what are your thoughts?
In this discussion, brother, I always start by saying it's an illegal war. He had no authority to do what he did. But let's be real. This is what the world looks like when an American president who pathologically cannot tell the truth takes us to war. The American people have no idea what's going on. The American people still don't know why we did it. The American people still don't know what the end game is. Trump doesn't know any of that. And so Trump lies every time he opens his mouth, but he lies about the war. And Leonard, this is another really important point. He's a madman. Like, I really do believe he's losing it up here day by day. This is a really dangerous position, and especially with this war. One madman, look at how much he's impacting now the entire world economy.
The entire world order. Yeah, everything. If you don't mind, I'd like to switch to the southern border policy because Republicans and Democrats are very different on this particular issue. And the policy is extremely complicated, even today. So they shut down the border. Basically, the refugee program, seeking asylum is pretty much shut down. Remain in Mexico is really Trump's policy more than anything. But if we have someone new come into the presidency who's a Democrat, obviously, Border Patrol and ICE is a huge issue, and we could talk forever about that. But what a lot of people are not paying attention to is the lifelong policy of the American way to invite people here for a better job, for a better life, is basically non-existent. We lost him. Hold on for a second, Congressman. I think we lost you. So,
am I back, Leonard?
Okay, you're back.
Woo, baby. Hey, Leonard, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I got the gist of your question. Look, I've said this before, maybe you disagree. Trump got elected to a large degree because of immigration. I'm a border hawk. Nobody should come into this country illegally. Democrats dropped the ball on this issue. And because of that, Leonard, this bad man got elected, and he's taken immigration enforcement to an ugly, dark, cruel, extreme, un-American place. Most Americans are right in the middle. And this is why Trump and Republicans are going to lose in November, I think, because of what ICE is doing. It just is not who we are. But Democrats need to be clear that we need a secure border. If you're going to be a nation, a sovereign nation, defend your border. But my God, let's make the asylum process better. My God, let's make it a lot easier to become a legal American citizen. Democrats have an opportunity, because Trump has screwed this up so bad, to be where most Americans are on immigration.
So you agree that we should have some form of an asylum program, some form of a refugee program. And I saw somebody on social media the other day arguing the fact that they're saying, well, why do they have to pile up at the American border? Why can't they, in South America, why can't they just go to one of those other countries? Well, that's not been the promise. The promise has been, we're the shining city on the hill. We follow a constitution. We follow the letter of the law. People have rights. And so that's why everyone wants to come here, not because they want to take advantage of America. And I think that if a Democrat is elected, which I expect they will be, I think a lot of people are like, obviously ICE is out of line and we have to change it. In fact, several government entities are not being funded right now because of the fight over ICE. And what I also wanted to ask you quickly was this executive order policy that's out of control. Should we, if a new president comes in, should they make it that if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to assert executive orders, or you can't run for president if you're a convicted felon? You know what I'm saying? Like, what would be the next step?
Two quickies, Leonard. I think ICE needs to be abolished. ICE, and brother, you can answer this better than I can with your background. ICE, to me, is the antithesis of law enforcement. I love cops. I love law enforcement in this country. What ICE is doing on our streets is not law enforcement. When a few Democrats said defund the police, that was stupid politically, and that was wrong on policy. Abolish ICE is not defund the police, because ICE is not law enforcement. Look, this whole executive order thing has been building president by president. It's wrong. It's not what our founders envisioned. But I say this as a former congressman. Congress has stopped doing their job. Congress has ceded their authority over to the president over the years. Trump has taken it to a level we've never seen. So I do believe the next Democratic president is going to have to use executive orders to undo the stuff that Trump has done via executive order.
And I'm fairly sure I'm going to step out and say you probably agree with me, but how did America, or part of America, let's say a third maybe, how did they ever get convinced by Trump that tariffs hurt other countries and that we don't directly pay them? Like, the businesses pay those tariffs and they owe, I don't know, what's it up to, about 153 billion that they've taken in tariffs. And now the Supreme Court says the way that Trump did it was illegal. And now they're saying, well, we don't know where the money is. We've already earmarked it for other things. But how do you think so many American people were convinced that it was a way to get back at China?
They weren't. Leonard, they weren't convinced. I believe, because I talk to Trump voters all the time, they didn't know what the hell a tariff was. They really didn't. They didn't pay attention to Trump talking about tariffs on the campaign trail. And those that did really didn't know what tariffs were, period. They knew everything else he was talking about doing, but the average American still probably doesn't know what a tariff is. And so all they know is everything costs more. All they know is small businesses aren't hiring because of these tariffs. But most Americans still don't know what tariffs are, sadly.
Yep. And another subject that is not in the forefront, not in the 24, 48-hour news cycle, but since you were coming in, this is something that I ask a lot of Democratic hopefuls who want to be legislators, who want to maybe be in the White House. And one of the questions is something that's really important to the Democratic base is, will the next president, will the next person in charge make an effort to overturn Roe versus Wade? In other words, bring it back. And what about Citizens United, where corporations are people, which makes absolutely no sense to me. But do you think the next president of the United States is going to have to address those issues?
It's a good question. I'm probably the wrong guy to ask, Leonard, because I oppose Roe v. Wade. I wanted the issue returned to the states. I could see, but I'm not where most Democrats are on that. I could see a Democratic president trying to re-nationalize that issue. Citizens United, my brother, you and I could have a long conversation about this, because I utterly oppose overturning Citizens United.
Really?
To me, you cannot get money out of politics, period. And every time we've tried to get money out of politics, money finds another place to go to impact politics. So what I would rather have, if I were king of the world, no limits at all, but instant disclosure, so that every voter instantly knows what corporation or what wealthy individual is giving me money. And then it's up to the voter to say, I'm not going to support Joe Walsh because this big, bad, evil corporation's giving him money. It puts it on the American people to stay informed with instant disclosure. But again, Leonard, I know I'm not where most Democrats are on that one either.
Well, I think, okay, so when Citizens United first came out, it was a really bad idea, but it's morphed into kind of what you're saying, because the Democrats utilize the system, the dark money, et cetera, and they have donors that are in the hundreds of millions, tens of millions. So I understand what you're saying, and I think the identifier is probably the best idea, so that the voters know who they're beholden to. The voters can see whether or not it's actually coming from a foreign entity. So I agree in that respect. But with regard to Roe versus Wade and giving the power back to the states, here's the issue I have. Let's say you live in a red state, and most red states are the population is close. Like no one has a 90%, 10%, 90% red state. It's 56%, it's 12 points, it's 2 points or 3 points. So that means almost half of your population in some of these states are having to live by state law that they don't agree with. That's where I'm starting to have an issue with it. And some of the abortion, laws are ridiculous. Like no provision for rape or incest, no provision if the mother's going to die. So what I don't like about the states having control is that a good close to half of your population has no choice. They don't have a choice in the matter. But I understand what you're saying. If you believe the state should have control, that's a valid point.
I'll just make 2 points, Leonard. I think the only way and I oppose what some of these extreme red states are doing. Public opinion needs to change. And I believe even in red states, this issue is changing and hurting Republicans. And we're going to see that over time. The other thing I'll say is you nailed the key word when it comes to Citizen United. Dark money. Get rid of dark. Put sunshine, instant sunshine on all the money, and that'll help clean up our campaign finance system.
And you don't agree with any kind of limit, like $10 million per donor or something like that, just, unlimited?
I could maybe find some common ground on a limit, but I'm always wary of this, Leonard. When we limited how much you can give to a candidate, all of a sudden PACs sprouted up. And then when we limited what PACs can give to candidates, all of a sudden super PACs sprouted up. Every time we try to limit one source, and by the way, Leonard, the limits are BS. Like I was the poorest member of Congress. When you limit, like you can only give me $2,500 to run for Congress, well, then that makes somebody like me who's poor, I got to spend a lot of my time raising money, $1,000 or $2,000 at a time, where some really wealthy dude who doesn't need to raise money, he can just lend his campaign $1 million. If we got rid of limits, it would balance the playing field.
I understand. Before we go, I know we have limited time, and I understand that, but what do you think of this recent revelation with the Epstein files with regard to Jane Doe and Katie Johnson and some of the other girls that have given sworn deposition to the FBI, and nothing's about Donald Trump, and nothing's been ever done about it?
I'll say this. This is one of the biggest government cover-ups in American history. The President of the United States, let me say this, Leonard, it's highly likely the President of the United States is a pedophile. And it's very likely that the President knows that. And so the President of the United States has instructed his Justice Department to cover it up.
And there's not...
No,
yes.
Go ahead. I mean, that's it. I mean, come on. That's what it is.
Well, I would, I appreciate you coming on and spending a little time. I know you have a super busy schedule, and I'm sure the listeners really appreciate hearing your position and chopping it up with you over what's important to America.
Hey, by the way, Leonard, damn good to talk to you instead of that Brian guy for a change. Damn good to talk to you.
He's out there debating and fighting. And wait a minute, I think Numchuck wants to say something.
Wait, Joe, but you always told me you love him.
You know what? Maybe the man crush with Brian is over. There, we'll break that news.
And you know what, Joe? I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and it sounds like you came from. Were you from Chicago? Or?
Chicago, suburban Chicago.
Right. So yeah, I grew up in a tough neighborhood, and it was great talking to you. And I'm sure Brian will be reaching out. And did you want to give out any information, contact information, or shows you're going on, anything like that?
No, just follow me on Walsh Freedom everywhere. Leonard.